Millions of people would love to build an empire and have an amazing marriage. What they don't know is that to have the opportunity to create an empire, you need a great, supportive spouse or life partner. And in today's episode, we have a very special person. Most people would die to meet someone like him because his name is Evan Money. So he is a walking miracle for a lot of people. He's happily married, #1 best-selling author, global entrepreneur, and film producer. And the first question I have is, what is the secret to your success?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Oh, Lily, great to come on the pod. Excited to be in this room and connect with your global audience. And that's an interesting question because I don't think there's any secrets to success. And, the classic adage, right? Only in the dictionary does success come before work. So there's lots of it when it comes to that. But one thing I think that'd be really helpful for your listeners is that what I've discovered just recently and really created words for is that 99% of the people out there, and even 99% of your listeners, Lily, they just want to feel good. Yet only 1% really are willing to do the work. Now, some of those 99% may want to do the work, but it's about actually doing the work. So for example, there are some people, Lily, right now that are listening to this podcast at 1.5 speed or 2.0 speed, thinking that, I want to get through it faster. And that is 99% thinking, because you don't want to get through something, you want to get from it. And so I would challenge the people that are doing that right now to get down to 1.0 speed and say, hey, what can I get from this podcast that I actually can put into action that will take me from the 99 that just listen and over and over and over and over, get to the next one. Okay, let's go to the next one, to get to the next one, because they just want to feel better, to being the 1% where you take something or 2 or 3 things from this podcast and go put it into action and actually transform your business, your life, and your marriage.
Thank you. Tell us about your journey of how you became very successful, Mr. Money.
Well, it goes way, way back because Money was my last name, but it was definitely a name only. And so to my bride's credit, we've been married 33 times and have been married over 27 years. And I'll get to that in a second. But to her credit, when I asked her to marry me, she was unashamed to marry Money. Now in LA, that's kind of a big thing. That's where I'm from, in Los Angeles. So she was unashamed to marry Money, and that was great until she found out I didn't have any. And she was like, "You don't even have a little?" I was like, "Nope, name only." And so we started from way, 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 way back. And it was for me, and I hear it all the time, and I think as Americans, also people in the UK and worldwide, we seem to be addicted to the overnight success, Lily. That's what we love to hear. And I'm sure there's people on your podcast, you've had them, and I applaud them, right? They went from, hey, 24 hours ago, I was destitute, broke, whatever, and 24 hours later, I've scaled, I've sold, I'm on the yacht, we've got the plane, we've got all the stuff, or right? I wrote this book in 24 hours, boom, everyone loves that overnight success, but very few times is that actually really the case. So in our case, we were going the wrong direction. And in order to get to, so we were going south when we needed to go north. And in order to get there, there's 180 degrees, right? Because 360 is a circle, 180 is a half circle. So to go from dead south to true north is 180 degrees. So some people can do that, again, seemingly overnight, right? Hey, I just made a 180, got my ship on the right course, everything was great. But for me, it was really like 1 degree every month or 2. And it was just this 10-year journey, just little by little by little. And the reason it took me so long, and some of your listeners may resonate with this, Lily, and maybe even yourself, is that we're all loyal to our limitations. The reason being is because we're the ones that made them up. And so we have pride of ownership So we're so gifted. Everyone on this podcast has a spiritual gift of spotting and being able to see everyone else's limitations but their own. So when they see someone else, like, oh, you just need to do this, and do this. But when it comes to our own limitations, it's like, no, you don't understand. Mine are different. That doesn't work for me. And so we're all loyal to our limitations. So I had to get unloyal to my limitations. I had to reprogram the way I thought about things. I had to start all the way over again and say, okay, this feels awkward. This isn't easy. This isn't fun. But how do I start shifting to go from south to true north? And again, it was just a little bit at a time, little bit at a time, little bit at a time. And the best part is, Lily, the joy is in the journey, and the journey is the joy. So for all you 2.0 speed listeners that haven't changed the speed, we'll do it one more time. The joy is the journey, and the journey is the joy, because the 99% have destination disease, Lily. They're like, well, I'll be happy as soon as I scale. I'll be happy as soon as, I get on the New York Times bestselling list. I'll be happy as soon as I get that international speaking gig. I'll be happy as soon as. And we have this destination disease. And what happens every time you get the destination, you go, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. Oh, well, I must be doing it wrong. Oh, it must be the next thing. It must be this bestseller list, or it must be this speaking gig, or it must be, I only spoke to 10,000 people. Lily, you got to get me booked at that 100,000 people gig, right? And so they keep chasing these moments and these milestones, these destinations, and not understanding that the joy really is in the journey. And so I realized that way too late in the game. But I think once I finally figured it out, I was like, oh, okay, I can be growing and learning at the same time and having fun and getting to eventually to where I want to go. So I also specialize, Lily, in long answers to short questions. So your job will be easy today.
Thank you. So, Mr. Money, tell us about how did you go from like no money to money?
Yes, that was, again, it really started with understanding that I had to take full responsibility, because that's what you'll find with the 99%. The 99% want to always blame something else. Hey, it's the economy, it's the weather, it's the election. If this person didn't get an office, then, this person or whatever. So I had to take full responsibility. That was step one of saying, hey, I'm in life exactly where I am because of the way I think. And just coming to that realization and being able to say that instead of blaming my father for abandoning me, or blaming my mom, or blaming this, or blaming whatever, just saying, hey, I take full responsibility. So let's start with that. Okay, I'm responsible. Okay, so what happens now? But so many people get so caught in the victim mentality that they're never able to really get out of it. And so that was really the key of just taking full responsibility and saying, okay, in order for things to change, Lily, I have to change. In order for things to grow, like my bank account, I have to grow. In order for things to get better, I have to get better. And the other great adage, of course, it's so true, is the biggest room in my house, Lily, and we're excited about moving to the next house, and it's just up the street a little bit, but that's the big dream home. But I can already tell you the biggest room in my house, regardless of how many square feet it's going to be, is the room of my improvement. And that never changes. And so taking full responsibility and understanding that, hey, this is a lifetime journey of my biggest room of improvement. Because again, once I improve me, then my finances magically improve.
Thank you. So tell us about what are your top 5 achievements that you're proudest of?
Ooh, top 5. Well, I would say, of course, my 33 marriages to my amazing bride. So we get remarried in a different state or country every year, Lily. And that was started when we had no money and we had to get super creative. And there's a whole longer story to that, but I'll just tell one little quick snippet. So we went to, again, having no money, realized, again, we want to grow, we need to change. So we went to one of these Dream Big seminars. Now, I don't know what they have in the UK, but back in the day in the States, they used to do these big events where they would basically let you in for very little money. Or if you were like me, I got really good at sneaking in. Okay. Like, oh, okay. How do we sneak in the side door and get in here? Because I was hungry for the information, but some of these bigger ticket prices were just, I couldn't make it in. So this event, we actually paid, and my bride didn't like to do the sneak in thing. So we're like, okay, we got into the door, and it was all about dreaming big. And she caught the vision, was all excited about, we were newlyweds, and she was just like, hey, what if we got remarried in a different state or country every year? And I'm looking at her with fear and shock inside me, but my outside is smiling, going, because I didn't want to be the dream stealer. But I was like, how am I going to do this? We got to pull this off. What the heck is going on? And so I was like, all right, so the best I could come up with, we live in Los Angeles, and I was like, okay, the best I could come up with is, maybe we could get married in Tijuana, Mexico, wedding destination capital of the world. And not to put down Tijuana, Mexico, but it's just this interesting little border town that is definitely not the wedding destination capital. But that's as big as I could think. And so we're making these plans. I'm like, okay, maybe I could save up enough for the 3-hour drive and gas money. We could get like a little $10 sundress and do some kind of little ceremony. But it just so happened, and I know God was looking down and just laughing, going, okay, let me help you a little bit. So we ended up winning, Lily, a all expense paid trip to Paris, France for 2 weeks. And it was a 5-star full thing. And so for 2 weeks, we were like, this is incredible. And on our exact anniversary, Lily, we were at the Palace of Versailles. And so we ended up having a private ceremony at the Palace of Versailles. And it was incredible. I had no idea. I didn't know opulence like that existed. I was just like, this place is incredible. It's bigger than Costco, right? I mean, it's massive. And so that was kind of like God telling me, look, if you work with me, this is what I can do. If you want to do it your way, go ahead. I'll honor that. But if you want to work with me, we can do it this way. And so that was the journey for us. And that was just one of the top 5. I would say 2 through 5 would be scaling some of the different companies. And again, those were all done through doing everything wrong and learning the hard way. And I started my first company with half a shoestring budget and a dream, basically, and that was it. And just really scaling from zero, from nothing to like, okay, and kind of just figuring it out as we go. And I think some of my other favorite accomplishments are, I would say, some of my biggest learning lessons, Lily. So, for example, I don't have specific higher education. I have a PhD, but that was honorary, so I received it. I was like, yes, I received your honorary PhD. But I decided to change my biggest, what some would call business failures, Lily, into learning lessons. So I would equate the amount of money that some would say lost, I would equate that into what that would be for a higher education. So I have a PhD in real estate. Okay, I have a master's degree in the automotive business as far as car sales and all that, because these are things that I've invested in, that I've worked on, that didn't go the way I thought they would go. But it's only a loss of money if you didn't learn something. And so I learned. So I was like, hey, I've got a doctorate in real estate. I've got a master's in the automotive business. And so those seemingly failures are those biggest learning lessons that I can take with me and apply those to future things, because it's like, hey, I learned that lesson here. I learned this lesson here. I learned this lesson here. And Steve Jobs said it the best, Lily, of, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. While you're going through it, you're like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. What's going to happen? And then when you look back, you go, oh, I see. This led me here and this led me here, and God had me over here so I could do this and learn this. And so I would say, yeah, the rest of that top list of top 5 were my learning lessons that I chose to learn from, rather than, again, be a victim, blame, and whatever.
Thank you. Now, when you scale a company, especially a company that is successful, marriages can suffer. And it can be so bad that either, let's say your business becomes really great, but then you fall apart, you start to kind of be stressed, or you bring your anger, your stress, your I don't know, you're overworking, or there are so many different problems that can occur when you have a successful business, because for a lot of times you have to actually prioritize the business, and then you can forget about your wife, or maybe you're not putting in enough time for your wife, your spouse, your life partner. And that's when you realize that actually, you know what? Yeah, I have this successful business, but I'm alone. And then once you kind of like realize that, it could be, well, too late, because your spouse could leave you, and then you're emotionally unbalanced, and then you're crashing, and so much more can happen. So I do wonder, what are 5 steps to scale a company whilst keeping your marriage alive?
Wow, I don't know if I can give you 5, but I can definitely help set the framework, because there's really no such thing when it comes to this as a blueprint, but there are frameworks, and understanding that people's situations are different. But when you have a framework, then you can say, okay, how can I apply this? How can I make this work? How can I use these ingredients? I know I'm a big fan of some of the UK cooking shows and some of this, and you have these master chefs, and it's like, man, I have those same ingredients in my kitchen right now, but I can't make that. Like, how does that work, right? So it's like, okay, how do we use a framework to say, hey, here's the ingredients, here's how you can put them together, and choose to work what's best for you. So the first thing is understanding of saying, okay, looking at, obviously the business is very similar. Starting a business is just like a baby, right? It's like, hey, we got a newborn and it's hungry and it's crying and its diaper needs to be fed at 2 a.m. And sometimes that's what a business takes. But it's also understanding of starting with the end in mind of what is all this for, and really getting clear on, okay, what is the purpose of all of this? Because once you get clear on the purpose, then you can start setting the guardrails to say, hey, you know what? Yes, there are times where the baby's crying and it needs to be fed. And there are times where it's like, hey, we're not going outside of these guardrails. And so it's having clarity of saying, okay, what are the guardrails? What's needed at this stage? So for example, yes, it's so easy to justify, I got to be in the business 24/7. I got to have my cell phone glued to me. I got to do all this. I got to do all that. So the first step for any entrepreneur that wants to have a thriving marriage is get all of the screens out of your bedroom sanctuary. And I say that specifically. The bedroom is your sanctuary. And as soon as you clear the screens out, the televisions, the laptops, the cell phones, the worst thing you can possibly do for your business, your marriage, your health, everything, is to have this, a digital device, in your bedroom. And if you want a life filled with pain and problems, then keep your cell phone in your bedroom. Go ahead. I honor that decision of yours. But if you want to get out of your pain and problems, get it out of your bedroom. And so some people are like, well, I've got teenagers, or I've got this, or I've got this going on. Hey, that's fine. You can put I had one entrepreneur, he took a special little table and put it right outside his bedroom and left it there because he told his teenage daughter, hey, I want you to call me if anything happens or whatever. And so he knew, hey, if something's going on, my daughter really needs me, I can step out of the bedroom. But just that one thing transformed his marriage, because we all know I haven't met anyone that is not disciplined enough to not answer their phone when it's ringing, or not look at it, or not be like, And so it's like, okay, the only way is to create a guardrail around that, because the business is always screaming for you. Okay. And this is what the interesting thing is, all of the urgent things are screaming at you, but the important things whisper, Lily. So your marriage whispers, but your business screams at you. And so it's so easy to justify, I got to do that business 24/7, da, da, da. And we've all seen cases of, beyond Titan-sized businesses that have not fallen into that. Perfect example, Chick-fil-A. Okay, this is a food chain that is now worldwide. and they are not open on Sunday, which is it's not like, oh, it's an off day, whatever. No, that is the prime dinner, lunch, eating time for that restaurant. And they chose to specifically say, hey, we are closed that day so our employees can have time with their families. And also for them, they said, hey, we want to honor our religious beliefs and be able to go to church on Sunday. But also, if you're closed, you're closed. And now the employees know that, hey, well, it doesn't matter, we're closed. And hey, I need to check. No, hey, we're closed. And so creating that guardrail created massive success for that company, because in 6 days, they're able to do what most companies can't do in 7. And so it's taking that principle for your business, saying, yes, I could easily justify staying here 24/7, 7 days a week. And that also on a leadership side, that also really thwarts and really it hurts your leadership when you're there all the time. And so we do a lot, Lily, we work with a lot of nonprofit, indigenous, third world leaders, and they fall into this as well. Hey, I got to be here. I got to da. And so we literally force them to take time off. And every time we come back for a checkup or whatever, and they go, okay, I did what you said. I took half a day off. And I said, and what happened? Did the whole world stop and everything blow up, or is your business and your nonprofit still there? They're like, it's still here. I was like, imagine that. So we go from taking half a day off to a day off to now 2 days off to I forced them just recently to have a mandatory sabbatical where they closed everything for 24 hours. That's the first time they ever did it. And they couldn't believe the response from their leaders. Thank you. I finally have time with my family and this and this and this. And so it's just from scaling side, it goes back to, hey, I need to set these guardrails, get the electronics out of the bedroom, and also get clarity on, okay, what is the purpose? What is this for? Because it's so easy, especially in the nonprofit world, it's so easy to get overextended doing good things. And for those faith-based people out there, we know the enemy loves to just say, hey, if I can just keep people busy, I've got you. Because busy people, Lily, don't get stuff done. Busy people are frazzled. Busy people are running around, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. So my bride and I treat busy as a cuss word. And we train all the people we work with, all the entrepreneurs, all the C-suite leaders, all the world leaders, and we teach them that, hey, the last thing you want to do is be busy. You want to be intentional. So if you want to scale a company and have a thriving marriage and incredible sex life, be intentional about everything. Because the second you're busy, you lose.
Thank you. What tips do you have for entrepreneurs who suffer from anger and resentment coming from their business, from perhaps customers that maybe don't pay on time, or customers who, complain, or I don't know, things like that?
That's a great one. That's a great one. So it's really key. And this goes back to my first ever mentor, the great Jim Rohn, who I actually did a movie with. Obviously, he's passed away, but we did a whole section on one of our documentaries. But Jim was spectacular. But he taught me back in the day is that wherever you are, Lily, be there. Wherever you are, be there. And this is where most entrepreneurs are. When most entrepreneurs are with their family, they're feeling guilty or whatever. I need to be at work. I need to be checking this. Or they're trying to do both at the same time, right? And then they're not either place and they're not getting anything done. Or they're at work and they're feeling guilty and angry, whatever, because I really want to be with my family, but I'm stuck here, right? And so just really taking responsibility and saying, hey, wherever I'm going to be there. So if I say, hey, I'm going to be with my family, then, for example, I'd love, there's a multi-billion-dollar company, and one of the founders would always say, like, he was big on being there for his kids. So the kids would know, hey, dad's going to be home for dinner every night, but then he's going to go back to the office. And when he was at dinner, he was at dinner. He gave his boys the full attention. He was there, present, everything. And they knew, hey, dad's here. This is our time to connect with dad. Hey, okay, 7:30, 8 o'clock, dad's going back to the office. Okay, great. But they knew when he was there, he was there. And then same again at work. And when he was there, they were there. So the best way to get rid of the resentment is get the clarity and the responsibility to say, hey, wherever I'm going to be, that's where I'm going to be. And it's going to require, again, because we are not disciplined enough to ignore the urgent, ignore this, right? So the only way to do that is put your phone on airplane mode and leave it in the car. So I have a home office. So when it's time for dinner, Lily, I take my phone, I either shove it in my drawer, I leave it on my desk, and I go to the north wing of the house and we have our dinner. And so I can't hear it. It's on airplane mode. I can't respond to it. And so the classic out of sight, out of mind works to your favor. And so you have to be able to shut things off, because this on all the time, just to your point, creates anger, resentment, pain, and problems. And then the next thing is, this would be mandatory if you want to be successful. Now, if you want to make a lot of money and be angry and get divorced, again, I honor that. That's your choice. Great if you want to do that. But if you want to go a different direction, then it's about understanding, hey, you got to charge your cell phone every once in a while. Most people are charging it every day. And you got to charge yourself at least once a week. And so whether that's a Sunday, a Monday, a Saturday, a Wednesday, a Friday, or whatever, but creating a sabbatical recharge time once a week to where you say, hey, today I'm not doing anything. And that may require that, hey, you stick your phone somewhere away where you can't access it. You don't go on the computer, because the second you check one thing, right, you're in. So I have fallen short on that so many times, Lily, until I finally realized, like, hey, I have to separate myself from it. And if the computer is turned off, I can't look at it. If I don't have my phone on me, I can't look at it. So now on Sundays, even though we have much more mature businesses, and it's not as frantic as it used to be, but still to this day, Lily, on Sundays, when I leave the house, I leave my phone at home. And sometimes I'll be talking to people and I want to show them a picture, but I don't have my phone. I'll be like, oh, I didn't have my phone. People look at me like, oh, you don't have your phone? I'm like, no, I don't. And it's okay. And so that freedom from that really allows me to recharge, because if the battery's dead on your phone, it's useless. And most entrepreneurs are running around with dead batteries, and they're useless. They're useless to their business. They're useless to their family. They're useless to their spouse. And again, to your point, they're angry, they're resentful, and all that piles on. But it's understanding, hey, what is the root cause, Lily, not the symptom? So if you didn't explain how I deal with angry customers. Well, that's a symptom, okay? The root cause goes back to, hey, if your battery is fully charged and you're committed to wherever you are, you're being there, then it's just a simple challenge to be overcome. And you can turn that angry customer into a loyal customer. And we've created ways to do that with many of our business. And sometimes the angry customer just wants to be angry because their battery's empty. And it's like, okay, we wish you the best, sorry. But approaching it with a charged battery is a much more conducive environment to approaching it with a dead battery, because then you just stay in that doom loop of anger and frustration and hurt and pain and problems.
Thank you. For entrepreneurs building an empire with their spouse, imagine that your spouse drives you crazy and gets you angry. What do you suggest there to deal with anger and resentment that actually comes from the inside?
Yes. Well, first thing, again, going back to taking full responsibility, is understanding that, and there's a two-edged sword to this, Lily, but number one is taking full responsibility and understanding that nobody can make you angry. That's on you. You're choosing to get angry. You're choosing to react instead of respond. And that's where the word, if you look at the word responsibility, if you break it down, even in Queen's English or Russian or whatever, the ability to respond. That is what responsibility means. So we all have the ability to respond, but when we're hurt, we're frustrated, whatever, we typically choose to react. And I have been known to react to a lot of different things. I'm still working on driving on the freeways. I'm getting better, but I tend to react when I'm on the freeway and somebody cuts me off or whatever. Or when our kids were younger, I would definitely react to our kids. With my spouse, well, the other thing that really helped me create a guardrail for not going there and not reacting and choosing to respond is I looked at, if I guarantee anyone that's listening to this podcast that has ever been in the, a Fortune 5 or a Fortune 100 company, if you've ever had a meeting with the CEO of that company, I doubt that you would ever talk to that CEO the way that you talk with your mate or your spouse. I doubt anyone listening to this podcast, if they've sat down with a pastor, a rabbi, or a whoever, someone, whatever their religion is, that they would speak to them in the same way that they talk to their spouse or their mate. And they say, oh, of course, I'd never talk to them like that. I have too much respect for them. And so again, that goes back to, hey, how the level of respect that I have for my bride is the guardrail to be like, ooh, I'm never going to be talking to her in that way. And then in order to get to that point, and this could be a full multiple podcast on its own, I think the key one that I can really help business owners understand and set a lot of business owners free. So if there's business owners that want to get free and want to scale, this is for you. So it's understanding the 4 ways that your spouse or your mate processes emotions and processes information. Okay, there's 4 ways, and this is not taught in school. This is not taught in any books. This is just Evan Money going deep dive and now giving it to you. So first way that people process emotions, process thoughts is the verbal processor. Okay, we all know verbal processors, right? You can't shut them up. Okay, I should know. I'm one, right? That's why I love podcasts. I can just talk all day and hey, let's talk it out, right? That's what verbal processors want to do. We got to talk it out. So my bride knows when we go on our walks that she just listens and I got to talk it out. So typically what happens is a verbal processor will usually marry the opposite. So my bride's type is she's a thinking processor. She doesn't want to talk it out. She needs quiet. She needs to sit down in quiet and think about something. So when we're having a discussion or a disagreement or whatever, I want to talk it out, Lily, and she wants to go in the other room and think about it. And so before, that would create tension. Like, wait, you're rejecting me. What are you doing? What's going on? And then that rejection would trigger my stuff from my dad abandoning me and all this different stuff and da-da-da. And I'd get all worked up. And when reality was, oh, that's how she wants to process what I just told her. Whereas me, I want to talk it out. And so once we realized, oh, Evan's a verbal processor. He needs to talk it out. My bride is a thinking processor. So I need to give her time to go think about it. And then create space or an appointment to say, I'm going to go think about this. Let's talk about it again tomorrow at 2 or tomorrow at noon or tomorrow. Again, being intentional. We set an appointment, just like I would with a client. Hey, I thought about what you said, and this is what came up for me. And then we have a great dialogue. So thinking processor, verbal processor. The next one is called the creative active processor. And these are the people that like to paint, or they like to draw, or they like to play piano or make music or go for nature walks. They have to be doing something active or creative. And that enables them, their mind to release and to actually process emotions, process thoughts. And you see people like this all the time, right? It's just like, oh, you're so creative, you're all this or that. And their secret is like, actually, no, this just helps me process stuff. And so I was really turned on to this. I had a great business partner. We used to do super intensive men's deep dive work called the Men of Greatness. And he taught me that he was a creative processor. And so his parents thought that he was just this prodigy because he would literally sit at the piano for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And what he was doing was he was processing his emotions because he was being physically and sexually abused, but he couldn't tell his parents. So the only way he could process it was get on the keys and play the piano. And that was his processing time. And that was the way he could put it out. And that what was going on because he is a active creative processor. Okay, the fourth one, dun, 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 that is the one that we're all most familiar with, Lily, because it's marketed the best. And that is the journaler, okay? The journalers are the ones that are the ones selling their journals and telling everyone, oh, in order to process, you have to journal, you have to write it out, you have to get it out, and that, oh, journal every day, journal. Yes, if you're a writing processor, that's what you need to do. But for the rest of us that aren't, And this may be you as well, Lily. I give everyone on this podcast permission to now give away all those empty journals that you have in your closet and wherever that are just sitting there empty that you're not using and feeling bad about it. Like, oh, one day I'm going to start journaling. One day I'm going to use that. Give those away. Give them away to the journalers that you know, because they're going to use it. They're going to fill it up. And so it's having the freedom to be like, oh, okay, I don't need to write it to process it. Evan Money needs to talk about it. My bride needs to think about it. Our friends that are creative and active processors, they need to write music or paint a picture or do whatever. And then we'll let the journalers do the journaling. So I think for married entrepreneurs, understanding what your mate or your spouse, how they process emotions and thinking things, figuring that out and being, oh, okay, then you can create the guardrails to say, okay, he needs time to think about it. She needs time to process it. And figuring that will bring so much peace and prosperity to your business. And you can also use this for your employees as well. You may have an employee that wants to talk it out. And you may have another employee that's, hey, stop talking. I need to think about this. And so it's understanding how we work, and you can use those tools for massive success.
Thank you. I mean, that sounds fascinating. Only thing is, for example, if I was someone who is like a verbal processor and then my partner was a quiet, like a quiet thinker, I would definitely feel hurt. And I don't think I would ever understand, because there are also, so even if you can say logically understand it, I would still feel like unheard or unwanted or unloved, due to like former abandonment wounds. And the other thing is that it's hard to really deal with this, especially if you're dealing with someone who will say, oh, I'll think about it, but actually they won't. Or maybe they'll think about it, but they won't take any decision. They'll just like hope you forget about it. So I wonder what you do in those cases where, you allowed time and space for thinking to your partner, and then there's no decision.
Yes, no, I really appreciate you bringing that up. I had one man in one of our Men of Greatness groups, and this was like a light bulb moment for him, Lily, because he was like, I am a thinker and my wife's the verbal, and I'll tell her I need to go think about it, but then I'll never follow up with her. I'll never share with what we said, and that was creating resentment. So he realized that he needed to think about it, and then he would come back to her and say, on a notepad, written out, and be like, hey, this is what you shared with me. These are the things I thought about. Here's my thoughts on it. And he would literally, and then they would create a conversation and a dialogue. But it all comes down to direct answer to your question, Lily, is intentionality of saying, hey, let's be intentional about this. And some thinkers, right, if you give them 2 weeks, they're going to take 2 weeks to think about it. If you give them 24 hours, they'll come to the same conclusion in 24 hours. But again, because they have a lifeline there. So it's like understanding what the situation is and saying, hey, how much time do you need to process this? Let's reconvene. Like I say, set an appointment. So it's Sunday night. Hey, this is very important to me. You've heard me talk it out. Let's give you some time to think. So let's reconvene Monday at noon for lunch. And if you're smart, you'll pick your spouse's or your mate's favorite restaurant and say, let's go meet here at 1:00 and we can talk over about what you thought about. And they would say, oh, okay. So they're at their favorite place. They're relaxed. They're excited. They're getting their coffee and they go, okay, I thought about this and da, 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 da. So it's about creating a lifeline. Other people would call them deadlines. I like to call them lifelines because you're bringing things to life. And so it's creating a lifeline and intentionality to help that thinker say like, oh, this isn't just get me off the hook. I'm just going to delay. It's saying, hey, I said I would agree to this, right? And you have to create some agreement. In the beginning, it takes some time, right? If they go, I need 3 years to think about it, it's like, well, okay, that's right. That's not really going to help. So it's understanding, okay, where are they at? What's going on? But get an agreement on when are we going to talk about this again? And then coming back prepared. And so everybody's like, okay, I have time to think about it. This created this did this did this. And if it's intentional, because we've all magically, here's the bottom line. Whatever we really want to do, we do. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay. If we justify it, we can figure out a way to make it happen. I've got people that say, classic, right? I don't have any money. I don't have enough money. I can't afford that. I can't afford that. They're the ones going out to eat. They're the ones smoking. They're the ones buying alcohol. They can afford alcohol. They can afford cigarettes. They can afford that, but they can't afford, right, what they really need to be doing. So we can always justify whatever. So it's understanding. It's like, hey, how do I connect in a way to where it's like, hey, they know I'm meeting them halfway. They're meeting me halfway. Let's create that dual intentionality. But to your point, Lily, it's not going to happen by accident. If you just realize, oh, she's a thinker, I'm a talker, great. Well, you got to get, again, intentional and saying, okay, how are we going to create harmony around this with our lifestyle, with the business, with the kids, and saying whether that's, okay, every Sunday night we're going to have a weekly meeting and we got a sitter and we're going to go out to eat, or every Wednesday at noon, or whatever it is. If both couples really want to do something, it'll get done. And again, we justify whatever. For example, I may say, hey, Lily, I want you to come to this great book event. I may have some authors for you, whatever. You go, I'm just too busy. But if I say, hey, I'm sending I got 2 tickets to the Oscars. I got 2 tickets to the Dancing with the Star finale. I've got 2 tickets to whatever. If I give you 2 tickets to the Oscars, you'd figure out a way to get unbusy and to make it over it, right? So it's really about, okay, what do I value? What am I going to be intentional about? Because like Jim Rohn talks about, we can always find a way or we can find an excuse. And so it's just pick one.
Thank you. What do you do with cowards who would prefer to just sweep it under the rug and avoid that next conversation with the decision?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think it's coward. I think we're all, like you talked about, I really appreciate you bringing that up, right? So my triggers are some of the abandonment issues and went on with my father and some of that stuff. It really comes down to saying, okay, if at the end of the day, subconsciously, Lily, it's conscious and it's subconscious, we will always avoid pain at any cost, no matter what it is, even if it's perceived pain. So the coward, per se, is perceiving something as painful, so they're not going to do it. And so it's like, oh, that's painful, I don't want to do it. And so it's about, getting clear about saying, hey, getting to the root of that and saying, okay, is this really painful, or is that just a story? Is that something you're making up or whatever? So for example, for me, as a business owner, I still have the task of dealing with quarterly tax reports, okay, for a couple different businesses. Now, to this day, I still label them as painful. So guess what? They're a low priority item. It's like, oh yeah, I'll get to that later. Well, can I talk to Lily instead? I don't want to do quarterly reports. Oh, is there another podcast? There's another thing. Until I have to consciously create a way to say, okay, I have this every quarter we do this. Every time you do it, it's way easier, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time, and you feel so much better after. And so it's gearing up and just relabeling it, because the meaning we give something, okay, that's everything. It's not what happens, it's the meaning we give it. So if I give quarterly tax reports as painful, they don't get done. If I get quarterly tax reports as, well, I'll put it this way. For example, this mind shift has really helped me, and I think, again, it'll set a lot of business owners free. So oftentimes, because now I really, at this stage in my different businesses, I'm out of the day-to-days, but I still overlook some of the paperwork and still make sure the money gets allocated correctly. And so one time I had another business owner call me up, hey, Ev, what you doing? I said, I'm increasing my net worth. And he said, oh, what are you doing? Are you investing in something? What are you buying? Are you getting some new crypto? What are you doing? He got all excited. I said, oh no, I'm just paying bills. And he's like, what? And I said, well, think about it. And this is something Zig Ziglar taught me. If you have a credit card bill, for example, right? If you have a $50,000 credit card bill and you pay that in full, you've just increased your net worth 50 grand. Okay? Because again, it's no longer a liability. So if you ask somebody, Lily, you talk to 10 business owners. I know you're going to have many more conversations today. Talk to 10 business owners and go, which would you rather do? Increase your net worth or pay bills? And they'll say, oh, I want to increase my net worth. Right? Let's do it. What's the secret? Well, paying your bills are increasing your net worth. And so whenever I get, cash flow, whatever, it's like, oh, I'm going to increase my net worth today. Boom, pay that, pay that, pay that, pay that. It's like, whoa, I just increased my net worth 500 grand today. Woohoo! Instead of fear of loss and all this stuff and whatever. So it's just understanding, to your main point, of if we label something as painful, consciously and subconsciously, it won't get done. So it's getting together with our mates, sitting down with them, making sure we see, hear, and recognize them, because that's big. That's the reason social media is $1 trillion industry, because we all want to be seen, heard, and recognized. See, hear, recognize them, and help them relabel that, hey, by thinking through this is actually going to bring you pleasure and not pain. It's like, oh, okay. Like, for example, people listening to this right now go, man, I leave my cell phone out of my bedroom. That's painful, right? But once they have one night of great bedroom bliss with their wives or husbands, they'll be like, that's the last time I'm bringing my phone in the bedroom, right? So it's just that reframe and that understanding of how our mind works. And just like a computer, whatever you program it to do, it's going to do. So it's saying, hey, how do I program my mind to do what I really want to do? Because if we let it go on autopilot, to your point, Lily, it's like being busy. It's not going to happen. So it's how do we get intentional to say, hey, how do I get intentional, understand the thoughts I'm thinking, the words I'm saying, and the actions I'm taking to get what I really want? And I'll leave it with this. You want to run your business. You don't want your business running you. You want to create a blissful marriage instead of having the marriage dictate to you by what society says, or this, or the leftovers, or whatever. So autopilot is the worst possible thing you can do. It's being intentional and saying, hey, how do I intentionally create the life and the marriage that I want? Because doing it by accident or whatever is not going to get you the results you want.
Thank you. For more information about Evan Money, go to evanmoney.com or marriageofgreatness.com or evanlovessusan.com. Thank you so much for watching.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.